How are you guys? Welcome to Wargaming China. And finally get to put a face to the voice. Okay, so today, what I thought I'd do is I'm out here in my favourite painting spot on my back deck. And I'm going to be painting, when I get everything set up, I'm going to be painting some infantry for a mate. They're not what I usually paint either. I'm working on 28mm figures today. And they are Chinese, but not for the War of Resistance. I'm painting these Warlord Games figures of the People's Volunteer Army, Korea. And I've had some problems with them because when I went to buy the paint, I was in the store and looking at the paint colors in artificial light. So I painted them all a brighter green than I was supposed to. So then I finally did settle on a color. Originally I went for Vallejo, which is not a brand I use, but I thought, oh well, metal figures, 28mm. I'll try all new things. So I didn't like the original color, so then I found Game Effects Vomit, and this is definitely the right color for the PVA. I found it on it was a very cheap paint, and I thought at first it was letting me down, but it just needs 2 coats. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to carry on painting these PVA. They are nice figures from Warlord. They're for my best mate Jalen. How are you, Jalen, if you're watching? And so I'm going to work on these, and hopefully you guys might join me. And ask me, you can pick my brains. So I'll just wait for you guys to. I'm a bit early, I'm a few minutes early. So I'll wait for you guys to go online. If you are going online, I didn't give you as much notice because I never really. I never know how I'm going to feel, if I'm going to feel up for it. Because believe it or not, when you're sitting here and you're talking to strangers, or the idea of sitting here talking to strangers who pick my brain did make me quite nervous. And I feel sure today that there are going to be times when I'm going to say, I don't know. But as far as Wargaming China goes, or knowledge of Chinese history from 1931 to 1945, nobody should be ashamed of saying, I don't know, because it's part of your learning curve. You haven't truly learned until you find out what you don't know. I'm using very cheap brushes from the $2 shop for these. I've been buying these lately, and they go all right. I've just got sick of paying top dollar for brushes. So I found that some of the $2 shop, I think I get 3 for $5 or something like that, and they do very thin ones too. So I'm going to stick with them until I find something better. This color, the Vomit, it goes on very nice, but as I said, it's a bit of a thinner color. So it's going to need 2 coats. And these PVA. Jalen, if you're listening, I'm sorry it took me so long to paint them. But as anybody knows, painting figures is difficult, especially when it's not an army that you know a lot about, or doesn't kick your creative motor. So I'm doing these. I'm going to do a good job, and there is talk that my mate might be buying some American infantry, and there's a club up the road from here that he's played at or will be playing at. Now, I did a video yesterday on the Schneider SMP gun, and I've got a lot more guns to show you in the future. And there's always going to be more stuff coming on the channel, but it's going to depend on my mojo, because I've done 100 videos now, and that's quite a body of work. So I'm going to keep making videos. I might be slowing down to production to what it was a couple of years ago. It all depends on time. I've got a job on that's quite far from home, so I've got a big commute on nowadays. But I came live today, hoping that you might join me painting, having a chit chat. It's early days now. I've only been going 2 minutes, and I'm gonna give it as, I don't know. Let's see how we go today, eh? Right then, I'm gonna waffle on now. Why am I so fascinated by the War of Resistance? Well, I think it was because as a kid I watched the movie. If you looked at my avatar, it's Boris Karloff from the movie West of Shanghai. I watched that movie as a kid. It stuck with me. And what really stuck with me was that when I went to the library to read more about the war in China, there was nothing in my library, and indeed there's not much in any library or bookshop about the war in China still today. Now, so we see the color. My mate Jalen gave me some references for paint guides. What are they? What are you giving me? He was sort of Chinese soldier, and because obviously, I'm based in Australia, so Australian history is made popular with gamers here. Let's start another figure. No, so yeah, that's what originally got me into wargaming. Being interested in Chinese history and wargaming. I wargamed for decades. Well, a good 20. I wargamed for a long time. I'm going to include playing toy soldiers as a kid. I wargamed for decades before I started to build my Chinese army, the Chinese army that I'd always wanted. And the reason I have that army, well, the reason I have a channel is because I have that army. It's such a unusual topic. Certainly not a popular genre as far as wargaming is concerned. And that's what made me think, well, I've had to learn so much about this war myself. And just like anything else, you don't know what you've learned until you've passed an exam on it, written a thesis on it, tested your knowledge. And hopefully you guys will do that for me today. And the show itself always increases my knowledge. A little bit of reading. I mean, I've always been reading about China, but when I do a video, I really do brush up on a subject. Because sometimes it takes me many years before I'm ready to do a campaign or a battle. So I might have been building and looking at the forces for 10 years more before I'm ready to say, right, I'm ready to do the whole thing now, the entire thing. And if you're doing it that way, I mean, obviously you do learn a lot. I never I never miss all the armor of the European or the Eastern Front on my table. I always find that having figures and lighter vehicles gives space for maneuver, and you have to start thinking naturally instead of just blasting your way through the enemy. Um, Now, this year I asked, hello, Corvinus Wargaming. How are you, mate? Nice to see you here. A lot of those lesser known areas and nations require so much research to gain. Yeah, that's right, mate. And sometimes you can't even get the books. Believe it or not, if I hadn't done my channel on China 31 to 45, I was considering Ethiopia. So the and again, that's another campaign that you go to bookshops and things, and there's nothing on the shelves about the Ethiopian campaign. So yes, when you do your research, if you've really researched an army and it took a lot of time to do it, you don't really have an interest in doing fictional encounters because you want to do the encounters you've learned about. I mean, I've got no problem people doing fictional encounters. I'm going to probably do the odd one myself, but for me, it doesn't give me the same. It doesn't butter my pumpkins as much as doing an historic scenario, a fictional scenario. And generally, fact is stranger than fiction anyway. So you can have some bizarre scenarios that are true to life, that are real. Um, yeah, so I'm glad you joined me. And what have you been working on, mate? What have you been working on? Huh? I'm going to be starting on some boats soon, some sampans. My missus picked me up at the $2 store. It was like a cheap resin boat. It was $6, and they have quite a selection of them. So I'm going to go back and get some more of them, and you'll see me make some sampans. Maybe that should be a group build because the stock in $2 shops is pretty universal. So I don't know. What do you think about that? So you gain 17th century Ottomans and Polish Commonwealth, both of which I know nothing about. Nothing. 17th century. I mean, I love the movies, but nah, no, glorious looking armies, beautiful, fantastic looking armies, but no, it's a period history I know very little about. Um, Polish Commonwealth. Never even heard of that, mate. What is that? Yeah, Polish Commonwealth. Is that? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to make you type because listen, I'm dyslexic. This is why you'll often see spelling mistakes in my videos and things like that. This is why I don't do script, and that's also why I've never really. I mean, I have tried many times to write something, but I just struggle too much. Um, it's very frustrating. What I'm gonna do with my mates Chinese, once I've got them painted these PVA, I'm gonna base them up and try to base them up as if they're in the mountains, rocky slopes. I don't know how I'll do that yet, but I'm gonna give it a crack. Uh, can you hear me all right? Not too, the volume's not too, it's not too quiet, is it? No, sound is good. Great. Thanks, mate. Yeah, so any questions there, Covinus? I mean, are you going to be working on any formations yourself? Anything, if it's on anything that you're curious about during my videos, anything I got wrong, tell me. That's why I platform my understanding so that people can tell me, wait, you got that wrong. They're going to be fucking quick to do it, but at least I'm going to learn. So fire away, mate. You want to talk about painting techniques? Let's just ask away. So the reason I came on live today was to do that, just to have a chat with my viewers and to answer any questions they've got. Maybe you started building. Do you know Chinese? No, I don't. I don't speak Chinese at all. But how can I say it? There's some words now that I recognise. Some of the words that I do recognise. A lot of the things stay the same. How can I put that? Like when reading their arbors of battles, it's the same as the Europeans. The symbols are right, it's the same as the Europeans. But you also, I think the thing is that I've always fascinated me about Chinese. No, I don't speak Chinese, but the Chinese have the very classical theatrics. Theater in China is very well acted, or even perhaps overacted by Western standards. But true facial expression and everything like that. I mean, sometimes if the actors are good or expressive enough, you don't need to understand what they're saying to understand what's going on in a movie. And if you've got a title of what that movie's about. But no, I wish I did speak Chinese. I can butcher a few languages, European languages, but no, I can't speak Chinese. And I do find that the translations, the computerized, the ones you'll find on the internet, aren't that good. And the reason for it is because Chinese people, they use a lot of slang in the written form, and it doesn't translate. So they simplify their own language in written language from region to region. So, and it doesn't translate, therefore, to Mandarin Chinese or Hancha or whatever language you want to translate to. And their language, as it's a lot of people who work in China or do China, everything has 10 bloody names. Because if you're reading about something that happened in a previous dynasty, it's going to be named and talked about as if it's the name of that previous dynasty. Whereas if it's talked about now, it's got its modern name. So it can be very, very, very confusing. Do you speak Chinese? Yeah. Apparently, in the written form, Chinese is very similar to Japanese. My mate Jan tells me it's almost the same. It's just a style of writing. Yeah, I'm okay with Latin-based languages, but and as I said, I can butcher them. I wouldn't say I could talk them, but I can butcher them. I can get my directions across. And because I work in demolition, so you can't really pick and choose your workers. So I've had to learn many languages in Australia. I learned Spanish in Australia. I didn't learn it to pass at school, but I learned it for the site because I had a period where all I was getting was Colombians, lovely people, but some of them struggled with English. Um, yeah. So what are you working on? Are you sitting there painting yourself, mate? Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed that hardly anybody watched my last Armored Car video. I was surprised about that. Well, not like deeply shocked, but very obscure Armored Car. But I would have liked a few more views. Um, do you scratch build much? Scratch building's look, I scratch build a lot and I convert a lot of things. And the trick to doing scratch building isn't thinking, I can look at that, I can think I can build that, I'm going to build that. Your trick to scratch building is, well, I think I can build that. I know I can build that bit. Build it section at a time on my work list. Even when I convert toy soldiers, I do it sections at a time. I'm a very methodical worker. And that's how I do things, one section at a time. And when you see that I've scratch built an armored car, for example, it's been done one stage at a time. And because I work from photos, nothing is to scale because I don't have the original measurements anyway. So all I ever do is interpretations. And you know what? That's what this figure will be. Is every army that we do as war games, it's an interpretation of that army. Even if it was a perfect copy of that army, it would only be right for one snapshot of history. It wouldn't be right for the previous days, the days afterwards. And that's what I like about wargaming. You are taking history and freezing it on the table and making it move as you want to. It's almost godlike, isn't it? How many viewers have we got? There's only me and you. Oh, two of us. Somebody else is out there. How are you? So, if you're a 17th century player, are you a 20mm player or a 28mm player? Or maybe a 15mm player? What scale? You see, now when my mate Brian does these, he has a subject that he's going to talk about regardless. And I didn't, foolishly, I didn't choose a subject that we could all discuss. So, or a theme for this talk back, 15mm, but also 28mm in my collection. You know what? I generally paint 20mm, and I cannot believe how much more paint 28mm sucks up. I mean, the figures are lovely, but gee, just the surface area, a lot of painting. I do love the 28mm figures. These are the first ones, I've ever tried to paint, but they do have so much details on their face. Uniform wise, 20mm figures just as detailed, but on the face, it's unbelievable. Face and hands. Although I must say that some of the metal figure makers did manage to do great hands and faces too. This paint needs a good. I'm going to use the last of this paint and give the bottle another shake. What paints do you use, mate? Yeah, similar scales. Also, you can paint the two forces up at once, can't you? Vallejo and some Citadel. You see, I am mainly, or was, a Humbrol enamel guy for decades all my life. And then I started to become even. I just had too many bad experiences with enamel not being the same color or getting in the heat and changing the viscosity comes funny and becomes shiny. I won't, just too many bad things happen with enamel paint, not on the figures. So now I still do use Humbrol enamels, but I use like these from the $2 shop, art shops, like $2.99 a tube of acrylic. And for colors like black, white, grey, silver, bronze, copper, you'll never go wrong with that. But for a lot of stuff now, I mean, I don't know if people believe me, but I actually go to Bunnings. I don't know where you are, mate, but Bunnings over here is a big warehouse hardware group, and I buy the pots of tester packs. You know the testers? You know they're about that big. They're about half a liter, $4, and you can get it with any color you want, and it's Dulux Weather Shield. And I've been painting figures with it now for about 4 or 5 years. No problems at all. No problems at all. I wouldn't suggest you paint your tanks and stuff with it. But figure painting, honest, it's good. And especially as I paint with plastic figures, it's really got a lot of flexibility. And it's cheap as chips. And also when I make a batch of colours up, if you got half a litre of it, that's enough for that colour for the rest of your life. There's none of this going back to it, adding something to an army 5 years after you finished it and go, what bloody colours did I use? Or where do I get that colour from now? You've already got a pot of it. So I've been buying Dulux Weather Shield pale colours and then using these manufacturers, Montmart usually, as tints, mixing my own colours and then putting them in a nice jar, store in a cool place. You got paint forever. Takes up a bit more space, but man, it's so much cheaper. And you know what? I do like this Vallejo. I've never used it. I've used the Vallejo in a tube before and I despised it. But this only in a bottle is not too bad. But again, there's a hell of a price difference. But still, this is better value than buying Humber. But yeah, next time you're going to be project, consider getting something, getting Dulux Weather Shield, mate. I dare you. You'll never look back. Yeah. So what am I? So as I said, these figures they are very nice. You see them there. But yeah, very nice figures. Very nice figures. And I can't hold it. There you go. Very nice figures. And as I said, I'm not usually working in 28mm, but for some of my scenarios in the future, I am considering some 28mm figures, but they have to be the right figures, or I have to be able to convert them. Yeah, Warlord Games, mate. Yeah, Warlord Games. I mean, I went to the site to have a look at, I can't believe it. I shit myself when I seen how much they go for. Jalen, you spend a lot of money, mate. But if that's the price, I mean, that's the price, isn't it? But yeah, I shit myself when I seen how much they cost. And but don't get me wrong, they are metal, and they are a lot in a box. And there's a lot of weight in a box of them. So and who am I to tell people how much they should charge for what they do? But for me as somebody who buys plastic soldiers, and I try not to pay more than I try to pay between 12.50 and $20 a box, Australian dollars, and for that I usually get about 50 figures. So to see these going for, I think it was 35 US dollars for a box of 10 figures plus postage. I mean, geez. So as a yeah. So you get a fair amount of figures, and as I said, they do weigh a lot. So I'm sure that they'll have to factor in to their cost overheads, because I mean that shipping's going to cost a bit more. It's not like they're shipping feathers, is it? Yeah, I've never seen their plastics. I wasn't aware that they use plastics. All the figures that Jalen's given me here last year. Sorry, Jalen, it's taken me so long to paint these. Are all metal. Um, yeah, I've never seen any plastic. Oh yeah, I did. There was a sprue of plastic figures that they threw in, but they're British desert infantry figures. Of course, they didn't. They weren't good enough to send him some more fucking Chinese. Sorry for my language. I shouldn't be swearing. Um, and yeah, well, the price of metal's gone up. I'm in demolition. I go down the scrapyard a lot, and lead's $1.70 a kilo. Copper's up to was nearly $9 a kilo. So yeah, they are about your basic minerals. So yeah, they're going to go up. I mean, I was amazed that plastic figures haven't become skyrocketed in price too, because they're made out of oil. Yeah, they look the plastic figures that they sent a sprue of did look like nice figures, but they're still in the plastic bag. I haven't put my hands on them. I haven't felt the quality or the plastic. But if you tell me that, I'll believe you. I don't know what I'll do with them. I was thinking I'll convert some of the. There was a couple of Bren guns in there. I was thinking maybe I can convert them to check LMGs, but I don't know if that's going to be doable because it's never very good to glue plastic to metal or vice versa. Um, you can do it at 20 mil because you're working on such a size that there's not much weight in what you're doing, if you know what I mean, not much pressure on. But I think 28 millimeter, I don't think it's going to work. But I'm going to give it a go, but, because I love converting figures. Do you convert figures? Yeah, I love converting figures. I think if wasn't able to convert figures, I wouldn't be able to have a Chinese army. I'd only have to be settling with what Caesar or a few of the metal manufacturers produce, and that wouldn't cut it for me. Um, do you watch any other channels on China, on the war in China, war of resistance, cleverness? I'd be interested to know that. Oh. Ah, was it? Yeah. Well, you see, the same motivation as a teenager has is what I have. It's cheaper to convert yourself. Um, Plus, my wife says I'm very lucky. I have a very good imagination, and because sometimes your imagination starts to stagnate as you get older with some people. But I'm lucky that hasn't happened to me yet. Oh, I did. Oh, that's nice. My channel introduced you to the Chinese war history module action. That's good. That was there on my channel, because yeah, it's obscure history. I mean, but as I said, please always consider that I am an average student. I have no academic qualifications to be doing this subject, and that's probably why I keep my channel free, because it's a subject that I see other YouTube channels cover from time to time and make quite a few blunders on. And I'm like, well, if you're making money off it, you should be right. So, I'm just old fashioned. And for me, when I tell my audience I'm platforming my understandings, for me that's as an individual, I'm platforming my understandings. It's not like all the other videos that I watch on any subject on history, as if you are now listening to the voice of God and everything here is correct. This happened, that happened. And, I would love there to be enough documentary evidence and academic evidence for us to be sure on China when we talk about then these presenters are when they talk about the German army in World War II or the U-boat campaign. You know, I don't think anybody going to talk about China should be that confident about what they're saying, because books producers last year have mistakes. Books produced in 10 years' time will have mistakes, and some of them will be the same mistakes repeatedly, verbatim a decade after decade, and there will be new mistakes and misinterpretations. So that's why I do my channel. I always thought of it as a kind of like the Wild West of history, the last frontier of World War II, if you know what I mean. The challenges with the Chinese in America. Oh, you're American. Oh, okay, that's good. I noticed I've got a few American subscribers. I got my mate Brian in Texas. Which state are you in, mate? Indiana in the Midwest. Oh, how are you, mate? Gets cold there, don't it, in the winter? I hate the winter. I love Australia. Never cold. I mean, even when it is cold, it just wimps. We're whinging about it because it ain't cold. It don't get cold. Indiana. I've never been there. I've never been to America. Never been to America. Been a few other places, but never America. And you've been a war gamer a long time? In America, we pretty much gloss over the. Yeah. Most people gloss over China as part of World War II. Most histories do. And believe me, even the Chinese, if it's not right with what they think is correct politically, they gloss over it too. Yeah. So, Indiana. So, do you live in a big city or a small community? Do you have anybody wargaming with? You must be a wargamer. I understand in America being a wargamer is not as easy as it is in a Commonwealth country where people wargame a lot, or wargame more than other countries, other places. So, do you manage to get a game in, or you're like me, mainly solo gamer? Local war game really hard to find in the US. Okay. So mainly it's Warhammer, Weird War. Oh, okay, I understand that because I mean, I just don't. I think I can visually. I don't know how, but I just understand that. You like Marvel comics, American comics are a lot different to like British comics. So yeah, I can see how the yeah, I can see how it just historical wouldn't be as popular in America. I can understand that. It's a shame, but yeah, I definitely understand it. So you don't get to game much historically. That's sad. Yeah, whereas I think like if you wanted to play Warhammer in Australia, it's as easy as anywhere else. Hey, Brian from Weird World War Two. What are you doing here, you weirdo? This is my mate Brian. You should check his channel out. He does World War Two. We're just talking about your type, the ones that don't do the historical wargaming, and just thinking. I understand it in America, because your comics are different. And it's just different. So I understand how historical wargaming wouldn't be as popular in America as the other genres, like what you do, World War Two, or Warhammer, or Blood Bowl, or what's the one that was called? Gas Wars. I'm actually thinking of getting some stuff for Gas Wars, making some stuff for Gas Wars. I haven't heard from you for a while, Brian. You've been busy working, huh? Yeah. Um, I'm working on 28mm today. I've that I'm a 20mm player. So for us, that's God's scale, and anything else is 15mm is the devil's scale. So I don't know how 28mm goes into it. I know it's a shame. I can never ever show my head again, can I? 28mm. The lynch mob's already on its way. Yeah, the lynch mob's already on its way. So, what are you working on? Are you doing some painting, Brian? What are you working on? Here's my neighbor doing some gardening. We'll just continue. It's not going to be much noise. Oh, this is for you, Covenants. Now, Brian asked me Do I have a lot of birds? Do I keep birds? No, I don't keep birds, but there's always wildlife in my videos because I've got loads of trees around here and frogs, lizards. The frogs and the birds can just themselves can make a racket, and then there's all the insects and traffic. But all of it, I don't care because what I say, I'm the only one saying it, so you'll just listen harder. Oh, you just finished your Easter dinner, Brian. You have a dinner for Easter, right? I can't remember having that, but I can remember Easter eggs. Um, Easter dinner, but with the whole family there. So, have you got anything you'd like to ask me, Brian, about anything war of resistance related? Because I'm really getting off easy here, aren't I? You know, I'm getting off easy. I'm not getting my brain picked. I'll walk out of here and you'll still think I'm a genius. No, they won't. They've been accused of that. What's that? Oh, barbecue. Yeah, Barbie. Nothing better. Nothing better. My miss is a bit sick today, so probably something simple for dinner tonight that I'll make. Uh, yeah, I'm getting here with these figures, 28mm figures, using this vomit color from Game Effects. Not a bad color. Just going to need two coats. Um, what else can I tell you, Brian? Or Corvinus? Uh, too much war, man. Too much war, man. Yeah. Did the warlords fight each other still when the Japanese invaded? No, that's a question. So let's start in 1931. All right. So in 1931, September, Mukden incident, Japan invades Manchuria, knocks out the young marshal. Young marshal retreats with his forces. Now, between 31 and 37, there's going to be a lot more combat between the Chinese and Japanese. Every single time, it's going to always be played down because the Chinese don't want a war. They don't want the Japanese beast released. And the Japanese, just like any bully, are happy enough with what they got until they want to do something different tomorrow. Um, so with the warlords, you see, from about let me see. Now there are some incidents that happen where the warlords do align against Chang in incidents, quite a few, but that is except for the Fujian incident in 1935, where the former 19th Third Army declares itself the People's Revolutionary Army and declares an autonomous state in Fujian and an alliance with the communists. That does end up in combat with with the with the National Revolutionary Army and what we would call warlord forces. That does end up in combat. However, many don't. Many don't, because you could pay them off or show a strength, some diplomacy. But the threat of it happening from 31 till 37, or July 37, are always constant. It's always a constant. It's in the back of everyone's mind. But what's worse than that is the warlords were always fighting each other too. Like if we look at the Sichuan clique. Okay, let's look at the Sichuan clique. They're always at each other's throats, but it's never anything big. It's never because when you're a warlord, and you see, I've spent years trying to understand how you think as a warlord thinks. And a lot of the things that you think of as a warlord, you don't do. You know, these guys that do. You know, it's just like let's look at Go back to Sichuan clique. There's five of them. They're in control of Sichuan. They're always going to be vying for one town or another for the taxes of one town or another. They do come to blows. They are often having fights with each other, but not heavy, not big fights. They don't let it go so far because as a war gamer, as a warlord, the one thing, the most important thing you can do, that you have to do, is to keep your army intact. Because without an army, you are nothing. And when we look at warlords like say Long Yun in Yunnan, a very powerful man. He's got a lot of wealth. He's building roads. He's building universities. He's building bridges. Um, he's a proper. He's a competent governor, but he's a warlord. Now, he's only got an army of 22,000. He's so wealthy and making so much money. You're thinking, well, why haven't the NRA rolled in? Because his army is so well trained and so well equipped and so well led that it wouldn't be worth the risk for Chang, because if you look at it in the eyes of everybody, if you look at it as a common sense or a layman, Chang is just another fucking warlord. He's just got more alliances than the smaller warlords. So yes, they did fight each other. Sometimes they fought the government, but they never ever let it go far enough to weaken China against the Japanese from say 1933 onwards. In fact, Chen Jitai, the warlord governor of Guangdong, would overplay his hand consistently with rebellion against Chiang. That was always put down because he couldn't get the support needed because all the other warlords or his allies would go, not at this point. We don't want to look weak in front of the Japanese. So I hope that helps. Now, if we look after 1937, did the war fight ever when the Japanese invaded? Well, I'm going back to previous what I was saying too. You got to understand there was a lot of betrayal too. A lot of betrayal. There's one certain warlord who I will do. I'm not going to name him, but we will do. I will do a video on him in the future, because in America you have Benedict Arnold as the name of a traitor. Everybody knows what he did. Well, the Chinese have one too, and he's a warlord that is such a dog traitor. It would have been better if he just turned on the government himself, for his army. So there's always things like that. From 1937, it's not so common, because from 1937 until 45, the warlords are on the start to become on the tit of Chang's government. And they'd have to be on the tit of Chang's government because they've retreated from the towns they were getting their graft from. They've retreated from the lands that they were getting their opium crops from, their mines and whatever. So their armies are now on the government tit. When an army's on the government tit, a warlord is nothing. Because as I said from the beginning, to be a warlord, you have to have an army. And everything is secondary to that. Hope that helps me. Any other questions, lads? That was a good question. I'm glad I could answer it. I'm glad I could answer that one. All right, think of another question. I'm going to go wash this brush. I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, it sounds like some early period of Chinese history with a lot of regional control. Do you know something, Calvinist? I can't even comment on that because, as I said, my history is my knowledge history is of this history is basically 31 to 45, and I do have some knowledge, obviously, of before and after, but I would not be somebody who should say you should listen to on China before 31 or after 45. I mean, you have got ideas on some of it, but earlier Chinese history, although I've always found it fascinating, and there's certain bits of it that I like and love and know. China is an ancient country, and I wouldn't. I know enough to say I don't know anything about those periods. But if it sounds like that to you and you do know them, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Now, oh, gotta get a beer. Hang on. Yeah. So I've got two online, and they're both in America. That's great. Oh, three online now. So maybe the third online's me. I don't know. Yes. Look, one of the things that I did like about my channel, I do like about my channel, is that I don't want the role of the provincial armies and the warlords to be whitewashed over or oversimplified. And I think this whole war suffers because of oversimplification. And I don't blame people for that because that's how we understand things. And that's why I do my channel, never trying to put too much on your plate at once. And even though the campaign I'm doing now, or the games I'm doing now, are two different games, are still part of the wider Battle of Wuhan, which I was covering last year. So, yeah, I don't want the warlord armies to be. I think in many ways, the warlord armies they have been maligned a bit too much. In my river campaign, where we saw the Sichuan army, which many historians just trash, or hold in contempt. We've seen that there were examples, many, that we shouldn't think like that of them. You know, so I did want to change some opinions of that because the warlord forces. I just don't believe you can tell the story of China's war without them. Period. Now, another thing I was going to talk about was frying your hair. Now, this is a resin boat picked up in the $2 shop, and I'm going to go get some more, and then we're going to do we're going to build some sampans or some boats out of them. So that is what I'm considering to be the group build or live group build. So if you're seeing $2 shops, head out to them and see what they've got boat wise. Yeah, that one was like I think it was $6, something like that. The missus got it from me. My missus is great. She gets it. She sees something that she thinks I can use. She gets it. I hope you two guys have misses like that. Oh, we've got another viewer. How are you, mate? Um, yeah, we're just here chatting. I'm having a cigarette break between painting, and I'm painting 28mm figures of the People's Volunteer Army. And while I'm doing, I'm answering questions. So if you've got any questions, yeah, she's still buying me some toys. That's cute. You know what she got me for my birthday? I couldn't believe it. She got us a set of Nerf guns so we could have a battle between each other. It's just fun. So as I said, I was here painting. I put some time aside today. So if you've any questions about the army you're building on, or The War of Resistance 31 to 45. Now's the time to ask. Just nah, she's fair. She's fair. We both had the pump action. Two each, a little pistol and the pump gun. It was good fun. Both became crack shots until we got bored. So yeah, any even building techniques like, how do I do this? Is this, anything you ever want to ask me today, because it's took. As I said, I've had to do 100 videos before I've actually felt that. Okay, I do have some credibility now to be answering your questions. But is there is there is there a battle that you guys want me to do? Is there a typical campaign that you want me to do? Is there a particular item of equipment you want me to have a look at? I've been doing the armored cars, but I'll be honest, I have a lot more armored cars to go that I've built or that I am to build. And I do like to platform them on YouTube because if you don't share your knowledge, it's pointless. How about a good place to see what those cities look like before they got blown out? Well, you see. I need a relationship between European style and Asian. You see, you're right in the wrong tree there, mate, because buildings in China were either Chinese or European. No in between. Europeans built to European style, or European firms that were contracted to build, say, railway bridges, railway stations, railway tracks, built them to Western designers. And it's the same for schools. All the modern schools, universities that were built in the 30s, 20s, 30s onwards, built as Western designers. Now, if you do want to know a lot more about Chinese architecture, and when you hear me talking about bricks and mortar mixes and, what lintels are made out of, I get it all from Yan Yan in China. Yan Yan explores China. It's a product. It's a tube on YouTube. It's a channel on YouTube. It's this girl Yan Yan, and she just tours architectural sites around China and does videos on them, and that's where she doesn't really talk about the brickwork and everything like that, but she highlights it, and then because I'm a demolition guy work, I have the knowledge to know what I'm looking at, and then I've read books. I do read translate. Do you know there's a guy in Shanghai, and this was a beautiful source of information for me, that just sells historic bricks. But he sells them obviously so he can build your building out of them. But his catalogue is wonderful because it tells you how the bricks from different city to city are all different, what their composition was, and how much they are to buy. So great site, it's a commercial site, but fascinating source of information for me as regards to Chinese building materials, so that how strong their buildings are. To be honest, Chinese buildings, especially around Shanghai, were very sturdy buildings, but they would collapse because all the lintels were timber. So all the inward supporting walls and everything were all held up by timber floors. So when they burned down, they went down, and you often just got the shell, the outer walls. Whereas if you look at the European ruins, we're using stone lintels or steel lintels, and you look at the ruins, you can still see the pattern of the house, just the floors gone. So there's a bit of difference there that if you're building a Chinese ruin, don't have, there wouldn't be any floors on the upstairs. Not like we do with our European ruins, but we cheat on them, don't we? We make them so we can get our machine guns in them and things like that. Okay, did Japanese Manchukuo have its own army of Chinese troops? Well, okay. Manchukuo, when the Japanese invaded in 1931, as I said, the army goes on retreat, but not all the army. You're talking about an army that hadn't been paid regularly, whose officers were getting most of their payments and graft from the area around their base. That was their area of graft. So many didn't retreat at all. They just waited for the Japanese and did a deal and became the Manchukuo army. So the Manchukuo army, as far as we are concerned, looking back at it today, was a renegade army made up of Chinese citizens. Chinese soldiers, Chinese citizens in the wrong army, in the Manchukuo army, which even though the Manchukuo is independent, it's obviously a puppet state, and it's probably more of a case of Japanese troops serving with the Manchukuo rather than the Manchukuo serving with the Japanese. Now, as always, there's going to be a few contradictions in that statement, but let's look at, say, this Suiyang campaign, okay, 33 to 36. So you've got elements of the Manchukuo army, and you've got the IMJ, the Independent Mengjian Army, and then you have the Jahol. I can't remember. I think it's the Independent Forces of Jahol. They're all under Japanese direction. They're all they are campaigning. This is a campaign that goes on in Inner Mongolia. They are supplied with armored cars and artillery, all of which are crewed by Japanese. Even though the armored cars are, I'll be doing a video on the armored cars in the future, one at a time, and they are very unique. And they are certainly not Japanese armored cars; they are Manchukuo armored cars, but they are crewed by Japanese. As well as you might see Porteed artillery in that campaign too, also crewed by the Japanese. Now, when we look at, say, and again, I'm going to be hesitant here because I'm not a great expert on this battle. I'm only going to give you my understanding. But if we look at the Battle of Khalkhin Gol, or it goes by another name too, I can't remember. As I said, I'm not an expert on it. But if we look at it, we can see that the Manchukuo forces are on the flank. I think it's the left flank, and they're basically on the surface an independent force, but they are reacting to and doing what the Japs want with a stiffening of Japanese troops with them. And I think this would be the same for all their campaigns, all their military endeavors. Now, the exception to that would be because there's always an exception. There's always an exception. Some of the Manchukuo units, no history has been on them, were actually reliable enough for the Japanese, and some were very unreliable. Now, if we look at the, and again, I'm going to look at that again, the Japanese Manchukuo have the Chinese troops. Okay, I'll answer. But now I'm going to look at, we look at the 100 Regiments campaign, okay, 1940. Now, the 100 Regiments campaign is the Communist Army, the People's Liberation Army, attacking the Royal Regiments and communications lines. Now, and strong points, blockhouses. Now, although the People's Liberation Army did face a lot of Japanese troops in that campaign, they faced a hell of a lot more Chinese volunteers. Yeah, locally raised Chinese forces. It was generally locally raised Chinese forces who were manning the vast majority of blockhouses. And many times it would happen that they would just hand over the weapons to the communists without fighting the fire shots, hand over the weapons to the communists, and then wait for the Japanese to come back and say, oh, well, there's nothing we could do. And believe it or not, it wasn't as if the Japanese shot them every time. The Japanese needed lots of troops, so it would give them maybe the benefit of the doubt and leave a few more Japanese troops there next time. So yes, the Japanese were using Chinese troops, the Manchukowans, which well affects Chinese troops anyway. And it was a good question. I hope I answered it for you. Any other questions, guys? Because as I said, that's what I'm here for today. And I'll give it a while longer. I've just cracked this beer open, so we've been going an hour and 6 minutes so far, and I think it's going all right. But a few more questions would be good. Now, you might have heard me say on my videos more than once, I'm preparing to do the Battle of Shanghai, and I am. However, I have a lot of work to do yet. You see, I have to build 2 more provincial regiments, provincial armies, because out of all the armies in China, there's not many whose troops didn't get to Shanghai to fight in that battle. There are exceptions. So I won't be bringing Shanghai, even though it seems to be a popular thing people are asking me, because I'm just not ready yet. Burma, again, I do know. I have done some war games in Burma. I've done the Battle of Octwin, done the Battle of Tongu, and a couple I refought on the Yunnan Highway. But again, it's something I'm familiar with, but I wouldn't be comfortable enough to platform my understandings of it. I've got a lot more reading to do, especially when it comes down to understanding China's supply system. Now, if I ever crack it, I really will be pleased. Because understanding the supply system allows me to understand the difference between a Chinese army and a Chinese route army. And for every reason that an army can be an army, there's as many reasons to say, oh no, it's a route army. And it's all about the supplies. So, and in Burma, the supplies, I won't know. I won't be able, believe me, I think you can understand the amount of research I do for my channel and for a scenario. I can't do it right until I get my head around the supplies. Because for me as a wargamer, one of the paramount things to get right is the logistics. I don't, none of my armies. I'm always keen to penalize my armies for their logistical wrongs. So I'll get more. I will be getting into Burma. I do have some things built. I do have some. I'm pretty. I basically good foundational knowledge, but on my channel I'd have to top that up a lot. I asked you if there's any battles you want. I'll name a few, see if they interest you. Changsha, Nanchang, Langfu, Daizhuang, Kunlun. Those are battles I thought you might be interested in. I'd be, willing to answer a few questions on. But I was really hoping that you might be more curious about my armored cards. Because they're my pride and joy. They're the one of the subjects that I really enjoy the research on, and when I do the armored car ones, I really feel that I'm giving you something nobody else bloody can, you know. I can't think what much else to say to this. Did the Chinese ever send any units abroad to fight in other Allied theatres? Right. The Chinese Navy did have a what's the word? An attaché. Did have permanent attachés in London and New York. Um, did the Chinese ever send any units abroad to fight in our Allied theatres? That's a pretty good question. Theatres. Now, from my gut, no. But did Chinese soldiers fight in other theatres? Yes. Um, now, if we look at if we look not quite stunned me yet, but it's a nice one. It's a good question. That's what I want. I want to be challenged, you know. I cannot think of any occasions where China sent troops to another theatre. Bearing in mind, let's look, say it's the CBI, China Burma India Theatre. Did they send troops to fight anywhere else? No, no, not units. I mean, even if we look at their Air Force training scheme, those pilots were trained overseas, but then returned to China for active combat. Now there are obviously I'll tell you something now. Okay, when Singapore fell, um, many Chinese citizens found themselves fighting as guerrillas against the Japanese, and they were very good at it. Now, there's undoubtedly there will be some cases. There are some cases of Chinese troops getting into Hong Kong and then getting out of Hong Kong. But yeah, they send troops to other units abroad to fight. No, not not that I believe not. I believe not. They did get to other they were in the European theatre of war for training purposes. Uh, but yeah, no, but you know what? I hope I'm wrong. It'd be a great story. It'd be a great story to hear. It would be. But yeah, I mean there were Chinese fighting there. There were Chinese fighting the Japs in Vietnam too, and in Burma. The Chinese war was part of the resistance forces. But when Burma got seen as independent by the Japanese, what were they? Aung San Suu Kyi's father or whatever. Then the Chinese weren't handed over by those troops, but managed to make themselves scarce. And those troops to the Burmese Independent Army, they never turned on the Indians either. They didn't turn on the INLA. So no. So yes, you did stump me for an answer. Yeah. A good fucking question. What are you working on, Brian? Are you working on a tank with tentacles? Are you working on a dwarf in Nazi uniform? Something like that, you know? So, what do you guys think about doing a group build boats? Thumbs up. Just give us a thumbs up if you want to do a group build on boats. All right. Do you want to do an armored car? Do you want to do a group build on an armored car? Nothing wrong with boats with hot chicks on them, bro. Nothing wrong with that. Hot chick with a 50. Yeah, I'm surrounded by lizards. Maybe I should see how many lizards are around here. I do like lizards. Nobody relaxes quite like a lizard. Right. So, I've got the Battle of Taijuan coming up. And when I do the Battle of Taijuan, I may well be stopping myself because there's big differences between what I've read in the printed form in books in the Western, in Western literature, from the Western narrative, and books I've hit translate on from the Eastern perspective. And if during the Battle of Taijuan, I'm expecting to be making mistakes. And the reason for it is because I cannot find a balance between the two narratives. This is always a problem with China, finding a balance because there's three narratives: there's the communist, the nationalist, and the Japanese. Then there's a Western appreciation of those balances, of those accounts. Did the Chinese have the equivalent of Victoria Cross and Medal of Honor? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. The communists were decorating their soldiers. You've given their soldiers decorations, and so were the nationalists. But it was just the honor of the decoration. Now, what I'm going to say here is I don't want to pee on anyone's parade. But for me, the Medal of Honor and the Victoria Cross are the highest awards for gallantry there are, bar none. And China did not have an equivalent of those medals. She didn't. But there were rewards and awards and medals, but nothing in the category of the Victoria Cross Medal of Honor. As for what China's highest award for bravery is, under the nationalists, I couldn't tell you, but under the communists, it's hero. It's hero, people's hero of the people, and then some title. And some nationalist figures and soldiers have been embraced by the communists as national heroes. But probably as in any armed conflict, the truly brave, all their stories were killed with them and the men that were serving beside them, never to be known. But no, they didn't have the equivalent of Victoria Cross or Medal of Honor. But I do think that those medals are very, very unique. Even if we look at the Nazis, what was their highest one? Gold Cross of the Iron, first class, with swords, diamonds, with gold swords and diamonds. Yeah, gold order of the Iron Cross with gold stars and diamonds. So and that was like an Iron Cross. I don't know. You see, that's a difficult subject, and it's not like one that I can approach just by knowing Chinese stuff. And I've known little enough Chinese stuff anyway. Here, yes, that's it. The Order of Mao, Hero of the Soviet, exactly the same. That's how the Reds decorated their troops. That's it. Gold Knight's Cross with red wheels on the side. No, it wasn't. It was given to the dive bomber guy too. Is it Rudel? Yeah, Rudel got it too, mate. Yes, they did. That was a good question. Generally, you see you see for a Westerner, you get the medal and that's it. But for the Chinese person, there's that, and then there's a stipend. A bit of land or an extra bit on your pension. So that's how the reward was, more than having a gold medal or yeah. But I'm sure there was certainly no lack of brave men in the Chinese army, as indeed all of our ancestors were very brave men to get through World War II. And only given a go, yeah. So you don't want to build an armored car. You're not up to building a boat. We've lost one already. See you, mate. And it is getting a bit boring. Come on, Brian, ask me something stupid. You got me all to yourself. You're the only one seem to be asking anything. It can be anything. What size is an infantry section? Um, ah, it's Korean, South Korean. I like it. Yeah, I like it. It's just a cheap beer, but I like it. Um, it's quite warm today. It's about 25 degrees, so beer at lunchtime. It's going down nice. All right. Well, my lady does get me beer. She probably buys me more beer than I buy myself. She's good, but she's got me well trained, mate. I do the dishes. I can cook. I do a bit of gardening. You know, yeah, Kaz beer. My missus is Cas beer, and my missus is Kaz. So yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. It's funny that I was told that today would be a bad day to do anything for the YouTube because a public holiday is like a Sunday; it's just a dead day. So even to get three of you here, I'm pretty glad. I'm not wasting my time, and it lets me, I don't know, get some one-to-one time with you. But as I said, if anything you want to ask it, because we only got three viewers, so it's really inspirational for me to do it again for a while. So and ask you questions. Is there anything you just want me to talk about? Right. Well, I'll talk. Okay. U.S. heathens are joining. Yeah, as heathens are joining together. That's right. All right then. Well, I'm going to talk about a subject that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's something that I want to build in the future, and I'll just share it with you guys, because there's nobody else here. All right. I'm looking at building an e-boat for my Chinese. Now that might surprise you. that I want to build an e-boat from the Chinese, but the Chinese did have e-boats. And I see your question, Brian. I will answer it, but I've just finished this chain of thought. Yes, the Chinese did have e-boats. Now, the Chinese took delivery of 3 e-boats off Germany, where they paid for 12. The other 9, the Germans kept. The Chinese paid for them, but they were never delivered. War started. The China, Japanese, the Tripartite Pact. Yeah, German e-boats. So I thought I'm going to build an e-boat. Yeah, I suppose it's a nice, surprising subject. If there was more people here, I wouldn't talk about it because I like my stuff to be a surprise to you. So yeah, they received 3 of the 12 e-boats. Now, I always thought to myself, what the hell do they want e-boats for? Because you look at you say you put them on Hainan. You think, oh, Jesus, that'd be a nice threat to the Japanese if they want to threaten your coast, some e-boats. But then you think, the Japanese Army Air Force or Navy Air Force would send bang hell out those e-boat bases. So then I thought, oh, well, maybe they were going to base them in the shortest part of the Sea of Japan. So that, if in the event of Japanese invasion, you can send your e-boats out and at least you can damage the fleet. So were the Chinese buying them for that? No. So what were the Chinese buying e-boats for? Bearing in mind that the Thornycroft, which already had with torpedo boat, was already fucking struggling to deliver a successful torpedo attack in some parts of or in some of the rivers of China, just because of space for maneuver, right? To deliver a successful torpedo strike. So, what was Chang buying them for? He was buying them because, as I've said many times on this channel, the Chinese Navy consists of rogues, bounders, and scoundrels. And he can't rely on any of them. He doesn't trust any of them. So he's buying e-boats, and he gets e-boats, because that is what's going to fucking bring all those warlord navies under fucking to heel. He's got his own torpedo school at Jiangyin. And when those e-boats, he's going to finally put the nail into all the factions of the Chinese Navy and finally have one Navy that's obedient and loyal to him. So that's why China bought e-boats. That's why Chang got e-boats. And I will be building an e-boat in the future and talking more about that. But yeah, if you didn't know that China had e-boats, that's a nice surprise for you. You've learned something on this show. E-boats are cool, mate. Yeah, they're very cool. Did the Chinese use snipers like the Japanese or Western armies? Right. First of all, yes, they did. But neither the Chinese army nor the Japanese army used snipers like the Western armies. Their doctrine was different. Now, it goes back. During training, Japanese infantrymen were taught to fire at groups. They were taught to fire at groups. So therefore, if an enemy is charging at you, the men in clumps grouped closer together will get the majority of the Japanese infantry defensive fire, because that is how they were taught. Okay? And when it comes to snipers, the Japanese snipers that were trained to go for the individual were trained not to take shots at over 400. So there's no long range sniping going on. I mean, 400 meters is a long way. That's a long way. But there's no sniping at long range like we find in Europe. For the Japanese snipers, 400 meters would be the extreme they would never shoot at you. So it wasn't in their training. The sights the Japanese were issued for their Arasaka weren't the best optics. So they weren't. I can't remember what times magnification they were, but they were about the same as what the German sharpshooters squad rifle was. The German sharpshooter squad rifle was different to a German sniper rifle. So the Arasaka had a lesser quality of sight than what his German or even British counterpart was using. Now, Let's look at the Chinese. The Chinese are using German rifles and German sights. And first sniper school opened in China. In the first sniper course began in China. There's arguments whether it was 37 or 38. And the Chinese snipers were using the German sights, the German rifle, so I could get it, but definitely the German sights, but they were using the Japanese doctrine. So again, Chinese snipers were not trying to take shots at over 400 meters. So yes, both China and Japan had snipers, but they weren't like the Western countries. They weren't using the same doctrine at all. I hope that helps. If that answers your question, tell me. See you, Covenant. Nice seeing you, mate. Thank you for dropping in. Really nice seeing you. Thank you. Bye. He was nice. It was good talking to him. Answered your question. See you, mate. Yeah, so we've yeah, look, I did when I built my naval figures, I did give them one sniper, but mainly is I just didn't have a figure, and it was just having fun. But yeah, the Chinese did have sniper schools, but they were using the Japanese doctrine, and they weren't training for long range sniper fire. And both sides weren't using spotters. They weren't sniper teams. It was individuals. So individuals. It's getting really warm now, so I'm going to wash my brush again. Hang on. Yeah, so e-boats. They had e-boats. What else should I tell you about that will be coming up in the future that I want to build? Well, I want to build the Great Wall, but I can't figure out how. I cannot figure out for the hell of me how to do it on the cheap, and I need terrain that I can stack up. But I am going to do it. But you see, I plan to build a wall out of foam. I don't know what density of foam, but I've been watching a few techniques. So I've actually found too expensive, mate. Too expensive. I mean, it's a Great Wall of China, mate. It's not just like, it's big. I want to have it going up and down the table. I really do think I'll be making it out of foam. Yeah, but then the blocks would be too big if I use the big kid ones, So I am thinking of it. I do want to make it. I need to make it, but yeah, I figured out the building technique, but the material I don't know. And as you know, when I get the material, the building technique might not work. So, but anyway, that's on my list of to do. Another on my list of to do is there's these funny little mountains that they have in China. They're never over 400-500 meters tall, but they're just like big fingers of rock that stick just straight out circular wise. And the finding that I wanted to show you were in and around Wanjialing in particular. These are the mountains, and Henry Battles were actually on the wall. No. The first for me, what can I tell you? It's a Great Wall campaign. Now, following the fall of Manchuria, that's what that's what we should call Operation Necker Part 1. Okay? So, the fall of Manchuria from Mukden to Harbin, Operation Necker Part 1. And it was always a two-part operation. So, finally, Operation Necker Part 2 starts in, I think it's February 33. And that's once China has been forced to recognize Manchukuo independence. Operation Necker starts, and that's the Great Wall campaign. So that starts at the base of the Great Wall. The Great Wall starts at the sea at a place called Shanhai Guan. And on on the inside of Shanhai Guan, is a valley that leads all the way to Beijing. So you breach the walls of Shanghai Guan, you enter the valley, your march to Beijing is clear. It's the path of invaders. Even when the Allied landed during the Boxer War, so they landed at Shanhai Guan and marched on Beijing from there. Fortifications are very old; they go actually out into the sea. And Shanhai Guan was held by the men of Song Jiayuan's 19th Route Army, which you know from your games in Beiping, Marco Polo Bridge. Now, so that was a fight. The Japanese are outside of the wall, the Chinese are inside the wall. Now, as the Chinese retreat, the Japanese can sometimes be on the side of the wall that you can defend against, or on the side of the wall that's inside of the wall, or sometimes on both sides of the wall. And that's for the entire campaign. You see, the campaign is called the Great Wall Campaign, and it follows the retreat of the 19th Army. Now then, let's go to second part. That's second part of Operation Necker Part 2. So then we have to go back to the 19th Street Army again after the battles around Beiping, Tianjin. Elements of the 19th British Army are going to fight the Japanese with their backs to the Great Wall. And indeed, when I've been talking about the Nankou campaign, the whole Nankou campaign is fought with their backs. With one half of the Japanese army, with the Chinese army, with their backs to the Great Wall on the inside, and the other battles many of the other battles with the Chinese face the Japanese on the correct side of the wall. And the Great Wall itself is such a massive project, and it includes walls there are sections of it that are massive pieces of the Great Wall, but they're actually technically not part of the Great Wall, so they're not in maps of the Great Wall, which represent even further field fortifications in China. So to bring you the second part of Operation Necker and the Suiyuan campaign and other fights in China, it is necessary to build some of the Great Wall. But also, if we look at battles like Taiyuan, and we look at the seizing of the gate, we're again looking at a fortified Chinese city with a big classic massive gate structure. You know, we see a fortified Chinese city. Same in Nanjing. You know, you forget that Nanjing, that finally the Chinese were on the walls of the city walls. So Chinese fighting from within our own fortresses that are the Great Wall, or part of the Great Wall, or an adjacent part of the Great Wall is common, mate. It's very common. So how many battles were there on the Great Wall? Very many, very many. But yeah, as a modeler and a wargamer, building a Great Wall represents a hell of a challenge, because as you know, we don't make the same tables every time, so it would have to be a modular thing that fits in and is adaptable. And that might not go with the terrain I want to make. You know, I want to make a certain valley that looks a certain way. Modular terrain. So there's a lot. Well, we've lost another viewer. I think it's just me and you, Brian. There's a lot of scratching my head and wondering how to do it to build that. All right. Well, I've got a few more sips from my beer, and we'll call it a day. For those of you who came, thank you very much. I did enjoy talking to you. Yeah, that kind of terrain ain't easy. Not when it's that unique. All right then. Listen, I'm gonna give you a call, Brian. That's it for me. I'm glad you enjoyed that. It'll be going on the library now. Have a good Christmas. Have a good Easter, or whenever you're going to be bloody watching this. See ya.